Previously, Luen had no idea what an ogre was, a creature 5 times his size. Now he had to face this creature. There were 2 reasons why Luen was willing to fight the ogre. The first was because he had acquired the nickname Ogre's Friend, a skill he had just obtained from Ogre King Ram. With this skill, Luen could understand the ogre's language. He knew that the ogre he was facing was actually scared because it was surrounded by knights and magicians. The second reason was that Luen had received a new quest with an enticing reward. If he managed to defeat the ogre in this battle, he would gain powers that should only be obtained by completing the quest within 3 days. Luen advanced, attacking the ogre with his fire magic. A fierce battle ensued, resulting in flames engulfing the arena. The ogre looked furious and aimed to destroy Luen. It leaped up, preparing to strike Luen's head. However, Luen managed to dodge the attack. He needed to find the ogre's weakest point. Using time refraction magic, Luen attacked the ogre from various angles with lightning-fast movements, targeting its weak points. The knights were astonished by Luen's agility, as were the other students watching the test. Enraged, the ogre launched an attack towards Luen and managed to catch his leg. It threw Luen's body, but Luen landed safely, without injury. Relentlessly, the ogre continued to attack Luen with powerful blows, all of which Luen managed to evade. Until finally, Luen found the right opportunity to strike the ogre and make it fall. Luen leaped and landed on top of the ogre. He prepared to unleash the ogre furry skill to increase his strength. The ogre was shocked and frightened by Luen's impending attack. With 1 mana burn explosion punch, the ogre was rendered powerless. Thanks to the ogre furry skill, Luen increased his strength beyond what the ogre could withstand. Strang smiled, surprised by Luen's extraordinary ability. The students cheered for Luen's victory against the massive ogre. Professor Tyron smiled at his students' abilities in his academy. The knights gathered around the ogre's helpless body lying in the arena. One of them approached Luen and asked where he got his abilities. Luen replied that he had learned them on his own. Luen asked Professor Heidel about the results of the test he had just taken. The professor thought Luen wouldn't be able to face the ogre, but as usual, Luen always exceeded expectations in his exams and declared that Luen had passed this test. Luen smiled, satisfied with the results of the test he had just undergone. A notification from the window appeared, informing Luen that the quest had been successfully completed. The reward he received was the player AE skill. However, Luen didn't understand the purpose of this skill. Luen asked Strang about the new skill he had acquired. Strang explained that this skill could only be possessed by real players. With this skill, enemies hidden behind protective magic or using invisibility spells would be visible to those who possessed it. Strang opened the minimap on the window. According to Strang, Luen could see enemies within a radius of 500 meters. However, the information available about the observed objects was limited according to the user's skill level. Strang then instructed Luen to look towards the deceased ogre and activate the player AE skill. Unexpectedly, Luen was able to see information about the ogre displayed on the window. He then tried to obtain information about Professor Heidel. However, it turned out his level was not high enough to access information about someone whose level was above his. The information provided by this skill would increase as Luen's level increased. Luen understood Strang's explanation about the new skill he had acquired. After the battle test, news spread throughout the academy about Luen's success in defeating the ogre. According to Jason, almost everyone was talking about Luen's prowess in fighting against the ogre monster. Luen felt being the talk of the people was a new experience for him. Some girls from the academy were seen approaching Luen and shyly offering him food. Luen accepted the gifts from the girls and offered them to Jason. Jason seemed displeased with Luen's seemingly unappreciative attitude towards others' offerings. Luen was puzzled by Jason's sudden anger and tried to check Jason's status. Since acquiring the player AE skill, Luen often checked the status of those around him. Apparently, Jason's status indicated that he had high potential. Luen told Jason to work harder. Jason didn't understand what Luen meant. Luen explained that Jason had high potential to develop his abilities in this academy. Luen hoped Jason wouldn't take studying lightly in order to succeed. Jason promised to work harder to try to make it to the top 10, even though it seemed unlikely. But he wondered what Luen did to change so quickly. Luen smiled at Jason's words. Jason also mentioned a rumor circulating that Luen's current achievements had surpassed Michael's, so he would be appointed as the farewell speech reader and academy representative. Luen seemed uninterested in the rumor and invited Jason to leave. Every 5th month of the year, representatives from each academy would gather. A magic festival event would be held during this moment to determine who was the greatest among the academy representatives. Meanwhile, every 8 years, an Olympiad would be held to find the greatest magician in the world. And when both events coincided in the same year, it would be called the Grand Festival. The Grand Festival was a national competition for the brightest students from renowned academies. The winner of the Grand Festival would receive a large sum of money and various other privileges. There would be 31 students competing in the competition from each academy. One student would compete individually, and 30 students would compete in groups. The student competing individually would be the academy representative. The students were curious about who would be the academy representative in this year's Grand Festival. Would it be Mikkel again? Jason assured them it would definitely be Luen who would represent their academy. Jason still remembered the last time Mikkel participated in the Grand Festival. He was only in last place. That's why their academy was considered the last-ranked academy and underestimated. They hoped Luen could change the academy's image at this year's Grand Festival event. They asked for Luen's opinion. Luen simply said that the exam they were currently undergoing had not yet ended, so he didn't want to be overconfident. Moreover, the student who became the academy representative was chosen based on the highest achievement score and the recommendations of the professors. There was still a 4th practical exam that had not been conducted. Therefore, Luen was still focused on facing this final exam. After completing the 3rd practice exam, Luen continued to train diligently by completing every quest available on the window. He needed the strength provided by the quests to feed Strang. Because Luen always gave him food, Strang grew stronger and was now at level 2. Luen was surprised by the energy and strength generated by Strang at this level. Professor Elric still seemed to be thinking about Luen's abilities when facing the ogre monster. He regretted suggesting Luen fight the ogre because it only increased Luen's score. He doubted whether Mikkel could defeat Luen in the final exam. It seemed unlikely. Mikkel couldn't possibly defeat Luen. But if this happened, it would endanger his nephew's position at the Grand Festival. He had to keep the Gary Hill family at the top of the academy. Meanwhile, Strang grew larger and reached level 2. As a reward, Luen received a 200-fold increase in strength. With this increase, Luen quickly reached a strength level of 1200. However, Strang assured him that this was just the beginning. The difficulty level of the quest to be completed would increase, although the rewards given would also be greater. Strang instructed Luen to look at the window. Luen thought all the quests he had done before were not that difficult, but in this quest, he had to complete real combat training exercises. Luen didn't understand the quest and asked Strang about it. Strang explained that from the beginning, he had mentioned that he could transform into anything he desired. But the transformations he made still had limitations. Luen was curious if Strang could transform into a human. According to Strang, he could transform into a human after reaching rank 5. However, he couldn't become a perfect human because it was difficult for him. Luen wanted to see what form Strang could take now. Strang then tried to change his form and instantly transformed into a scarecrow. Luen couldn't help but hold back laughter at the transformation Strang could do. Strang was annoyed and told Luen not to underestimate his current form. This form was useful for Draka when he first practiced real combat training. With this form, Strang would help Luen complete combat training quests every day. According to Strang, his current level was still weak as he was still in the 3rd level of the magician class. When he reached a higher level and his strength was full, then he could do anything. He could even become a demon or a dragon to help Luen train. Luen then urged Strang to start training. Luen asked Strang to act as a magician to train with him. Strang complied with Luen's request. However, he explained that if his magic hit Luen, it wouldn't hurt him. Likewise, if Luen's magic hit Strang, it wouldn't affect him. Luen thought this was the perfect training partner for him. And so, they both began training using magic attacks. They practiced attacking and dodging each other's spells. Meanwhile, in Professor Elric's room, Mikkel and his uncle were discussing something. Apparently, they were still discussing Michael's failure in the combat test and Luen's success in achieving the highest score. Professor Elric was somewhat annoyed, saying that if only his nephew had the ability to defeat Luen. Mikkel, feeling belittled by his uncle, spoke angrily, telling his uncle not to talk too much. He also said that because of his uncle's suggestion for Luen to face the ogre, Luen got a high score. If the Gary Hill family found out about his uncle's behavior, his uncle's fate wouldn't be good. Professor Elric grew more annoyed at his nephew's audacity. Mikkel asked his uncle to stop saying unreasonable things. They should start thinking of ways to defeat Luen in the upcoming 4th exam. Professor Elric had an idea for Mikkel to face Luen in the final exam. He handed Mikkel a bottle of medicine. The medicine given by the professor was burning flower. It was made from a rare plant that only grew in the northern region. According to Professor Elric, if Mikkel drank this medicine, it would drastically reduce the time it took to recite magic. However, the effect of this medicine was that the person who drank it would forget about pain and wouldn't be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Mikkel was puzzled as to why his uncle told him to drink this medicine. Professor Elric assured him that this was the only way to defeat Luen. If Mikkel failed in the final exam, he would be punished by the family. But Mikkel still hesitated to drink the medicine because Professor Haydell knew his limits and would be suspicious if his abilities suddenly increased. It turned out Professor Elric had planned it all out. He had already made a second medicine to deceive so that Mikkel wouldn't be detected using the illegal medicine burning flower. Professor Elric instructed Mikkel to drink the second medicine after drinking the first one. He assured Mikkel not to be afraid. While Mikkel was still unsure and confused about his uncle's plan and whether it would succeed. Finally, the one-on-one combat practice exam had arrived. The location for the 4th exam was the Mana Barrier Hall. As usual, the combat exams were always crowded with students eager to watch the fights. Today's combat exam was between Mikkel and Luen. Strang informed Luen that his opponent knew he would use close combat, which would make it difficult for Luen. But Luen was confident that he could easily defeat Mikkel. A professor from the academy acted as the referee for the match. He explained the rules for this particular fight. Various geographical features would be installed to make the fight seem more real. Luen observed Mikkel sharply. He noticed that Michael's current condition was not normal. Mikkel didn't seem as arrogant as usual. Luen then tried to activate the player AE skill to check Michael's condition. Through his skill, Luen saw that Mikkel was in a hidden special condition. Luen wondered if Mikkel had taken some kind of potion. Before the exam, each participant would undergo a test of using drugs supervised by Professor Elric. Luen thought perhaps his uncle Elric made Mikkel drink something to help him in an unknown condition. The referee explained that participants were prohibited from using black magic. They were only allowed to use fundamental magic from the 4 elements. Additionally, protective shields had been installed at the exam location, capable of absorbing up to 99% of magic power. When allowed to ask questions, Luen asked the referee what the punishment would be for participants caught consuming illegal drugs. The referee explained that the punishment would be failing the exam and possibly being expelled from the academy. The referee was surprised why Luen asked that question. The fight soon began. Luen and Mikkel took their positions. Luen still suspected that Mikkel was using illegal drugs, but he had to find evidence. As the fight began, Mikkel quickly moved forward to attack Luen. Using Praison Tree magic, Mikkel immobilized Luen's movements so he could attack freely. But Luen managed to free himself quickly, astonishing the audience. Luen was pleased that the protective magic in the arena could reduce the effectiveness of magic, but not its strength. Mikkel continued to try to attack Luen with all his abilities. He unleashed a burst of fire magic to attack Luen. Luen managed to dodge Michael's fire burst, then quickly took cover behind a rock. Mikkel became angry and shouted loudly for Luen to come out of hiding. Meanwhile, Luen observed from behind the rock, noticing Michael's unusual behavior. He was sure that Mikkel had taken burning flower potion. It was evident from Michael's trembling hands and lack of pain response. Luen emerged from behind the rock and prepared to face Mikkel. He said that he knew Mikkel had consumed illegal drugs. Mikkel was, of course, surprised to hear Luen's words. He didn't expect Luen to know about his actions. Luen then began to attack. He used time refraction magic to attack Mikkel swiftly. Mikkel struggled to cope with Luen's rapid attacks. Mikkel tried to create an ice shield to withstand Luen's attacks, but Luen managed to break it with one strike. The professors watching the fight were amazed by Luen's ability to destroy the enemy's attacks. Mikkel unleashed fire lizard magic to attack Luen. It was a powerful level 3 magic. Luen countered Michael's attack by releasing earthquake magic, producing a loud boom. Everyone watching the fight was shocked. Mikkel was thrown back by the magic power unleashed by Luen. Luen approached the frightened Mikkel, taunting him not to be a coward. Luen snapped his fingers on Michael's head, and immediately there was a loud explosion.